I learned that being a street Ripperdoc doesn't kill you. It hollows you out one patient at a time until you're just meat operating on meat. When the kid walked into my clinic at 3 a.m. with his spine hanging out like exposed wiring, I thought I understood suffering. I was wrong. My name is Elijah Cross. I run an unlicensed surgical clinic in Watson, 3 floors below street level, in a building that should have been condemned a decade ago. The concrete walls weep moisture constantly. Black mold spreads in patterns that look almost deliberate. The air tastes like copper and decay, thick enough to choke on during the summer months when the ventilation fails, which is most months. The clinic exists in a legal gray zone, which is street talk for completely illegal. No permits, no oversight, no safety inspections. Just me, a surgical chair I stole from a Santo Domingo hospital, and equipment held together with prayers and aftermarket parts. The neon sign outside flickers every 5 seconds. Red, dark, red, dark. It reads clinic in letters half melted by acid rain. Someone spray painted "Where Angels Bleed" across the bricks last week. Poetic, accurate. I ended up here 3 years ago after trauma team terminated my contract. I was 6 months into their intensive care program. Prestigious position, corpo benefits, salary that could have bought me an apartment with actual windows. I had credentials, Columbia Medical Academy, top 15% of my class, future mapped out clean and straight. Then came the call. Vehicular collision in Japantown, civilian with massive internal hemorrhaging, no corporate insurance, credit account showing negative 4,000 eddies. Trauma team protocol was crystal clear. Stabilized for transport to county facility, minimal intervention, let the system process him. I ignored protocol. Performed full surgical repair in the AV, saved his life. Trauma team's response was equally clear. Immediate termination, violation of corporate policy, unauthorized resource allocation. They revoked my certifications and blacklisted me across every legitimate medical network in Night City. 3 days later, I was installing reflex boosters in a Valentino enforcer's basement, getting paid in stolen pharmaceuticals and threats. That was 3 years ago. Feels like 30. My clinic sits between a brain dance den and a brothel run by tiger claws. I didn't choose the location. The location chose me. When you're blacklisted, you take what you can get. The claws charge me 3,000 eddies monthly for protection, which really means they don't burn my clinic down or tell the NCPD where I'm operating. It's a reasonable arrangement in Night City terms. The surgical chair dominates the center of the space. Medical grade leather, permanently stained brown and black from fluids I stopped identifying years ago. It's bolted directly to concrete because patients thrash, especially when the anesthetic runs out halfway through surgery, which happens more often than I'd like to admit. My equipment forms a careful perimeter around the chair. Nerve stapler, refurbished 4 times, held together with spit and stolen components. Bone welder, Militech surplus that burns through power cells faster than I can source them. Synth skin applicator that prints replacement tissue at a resolution just good enough to fool most scanners. A rolling tray covered in surgical tools I clean obsessively between patients. Sometimes the blood comes off, sometimes it doesn't. The bioprinter against the far wall hums constantly, grinding through print cycles with mechanical sounds that suggest imminent catastrophic failure. I've replaced the print heads 3 times. The software is 11 years out of date, but it still produces functional organs roughly 60% of the time, which beats telling patients to die because I can't source a replacement kidney on the black market. Lighting comes from industrial LED panels I salvaged from a construction site in Pacifica. They cast everything in harsh white light that makes flesh look plastic and blood look black. There's a small refrigeration unit for biologics, vaccines, antibiotics, synthetic blood, whatever I can source from my network. Most of it is expired. Some of it is counterfeit. I test everything twice before injection, sometimes 3 times if I'm feeling paranoid. The walls are bare concrete. They sweat constantly, moisture running down in rivulets that pool in the corners. I've treated them with antifungal agents 5 times. The fungus keeps returning. Black spots spreading like cancer through porous stone. We coexist now, me and the rot. There's a metaphor there, but I'm too tired to examine it. My first patient that morning arrived at 2:47 a.m. I remember the exact time because I checked later, trying to establish a timeline for when everything started falling apart. Her name was Sarah Volker, mid-30s. Corporate suit torn and soaked through with blood that looked black under my lights. She had chrome, the expensive kind that costs more than I'll make in my lifetime. Gorilla arms rated for 3 tons of pressure. Subdermal armor plating that should have stopped anything short of armor-piercing rounds. Sandevistan reflex booster, military specification, the kind that lets you move faster than human perception. Top-tier augmentation. Corporate money. None of it had saved her from the scavengers. They'd carved her open with professional efficiency. Surgical precision. Both kidneys removed. Liver partially excised. They were working on harvesting her optic nerves when something interrupted them. Police sirens, rival gang, didn't matter. They dumped her in a kabuki alley to bleed out in the rain like garbage. Someone found her. I still don't know who. They dragged her to my door. Literally dragged, left a blood trail down 3 flights of stairs, and just dropped her on my landing. I heard the impact from inside. Heavy, wet thud of a body hitting concrete. By the time I opened the door, whoever brought her was gone. Only boot prints and blood leading back up the stairs. She was still conscious. That was the worst part. Her eyes tracked me as I grabbed her arms, pulled her inside, down the stairs, into the surgical chair. She tried to speak but couldn't form words, just wet gurgling sounds. Her abdomen was open. I could see inside her. Empty spaces where organs should have been. Synthetic coolant mixing with blood in a cocktail that would kill her in minutes. I worked for 3 hours and 17 minutes. The bioprinter jammed twice while printing replacement organs. Basic models, cheapest specifications, the kind that might last 5 years if she's lucky. I had to manually clear the print heads while she slowly drowned in her own fluids. Her vitals dropping, her body shutting down system by system. Got the organs printed, installed them, connected major blood vessels with hands that wouldn't stay steady, sealed the abdominal cavity with synth skin and medical adhesive, pumped her full of antibiotics and synthetic blood and immunosuppressants, watched the monitors, watched her numbers stabilize. Barely. She woke up screaming. The sound filled my clinic like a physical presence. Raw. Animal. The scream of someone who'd seen the edge of death and found it crowded with things worse than dying. She thrashed in the chair, nearly tore out her own IVs, eyes rolling back until only the whites showed. I had to physically restrain her, my hands on her shoulders, feeling the subdermal armor shifting beneath her skin like a second skeleton. "You're alive," I told her. "You're safe. It's over. You're alive." It took 11 minutes for her to stop screaming. Another 6 for her breathing to normalize. When she finally spoke, her voice was mechanical, flat, affectless. Shock, probably. Or something broken deeper than my tools could reach. How much? 6,000 eddies. She paid immediately. Transferred funds from an account I didn't ask about. Then she stood up, tested her limbs. The gorilla arms flexed experimentally. Chrome fingers curled into fists. She looked at me with eyes that had gone somewhere cold and hadn't come back. "Who were they?" I asked. Stupid question. Breaking the unwritten rule. You don't ask. You never ask. Scavs. North Kabuki. I'll find them. You need rest, recovery time. Those organs are fresh prints. They need time to integrate properly with your system, or they'll reject and I'll find them. She left, climbed the stairs without looking back. I heard later what happened. She tracked the scavengers to their chop shop in an abandoned factory, found all 7 of them, killed them with her bare hands. The gorilla arms helped. So did the rage. So did whatever she'd become in that alley while they carved pieces out of her body like she was livestock. The NCPD found the shop 4 days later. Reported 8 bodies. The 7 scavs and 1 unidentified woman. Massive internal organ failure. The printed organs had rejected. Happened sometimes with rushed jobs. She'd known. Must have known. Did it anyway. Got her revenge first, then died. I cleaned the blood from my clinic, sterilized the tools, sat in the empty space and smoked a cigarette with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The first cigarette became a second, then a third. I sat there until dawn broke somewhere above me, invisible through 3 floors of concrete and steel and human misery. Patient number 1. The second patient arrived at 6:23 a.m. I'd just finished cleaning when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, dragging, the wet slap of boots on concrete. The door opened and he stumbled through. He was young, 17, maybe 18. Hard to tell with the chrome. Maelstrom colors tattooed across every visible inch of organic skin. Kuroshi optics glowing red in the dim light like a demon's eyes. Mantis blades installed in both forearms. I could see the housing units beneath his skin, the metal pressing against tissue, ready to deploy. And his head, his skull was missing, just gone. A shotgun blast had removed everything above his right eyebrow. Bone fragments, brain tissue, chrome plating, all of it excavated by high-velocity buckshot at close range. I could see his brain, pulsing, wet, gray matter exposed to air and bacteria and every pathogen this contaminated city could throw at it. He was still walking, still talking. "Fix me," he said. His voice was distorted, synthetic. The blast had destroyed his organic vocal cords. He was speaking through a voice modulator installed in his throat. "Sit down before you die standing." He collapsed into the chair. The impact sprayed blood and cerebrospinal fluid across my floor in an arc pattern I'd be finding for weeks. I didn't have time to care. I grabbed the bone welder, started cutting away destroyed tissue. His brain was damaged, but not critically. The chrome implants had taken most of the impact, shattered themselves to absorb the kinetic energy. Neural processor destroyed. Cooling system ruptured. But the organic matter was mostly intact. I worked fast. Removed the destroyed implants piece by piece, welded polymer plating over the exposed skull, rerouted his neural pathways around damaged sections using bridge implants I'd salvaged from previous patients, set the bioprinter to produce a section of synthetic bone, waited while it ground through the print cycle, installed it, sealed everything with medical adhesive and synth skin. 93 minutes, start to finish. When I stepped back, he looked almost human. Almost. The new skull section was off-color, paler than his remaining skin, but it was sealed, protected, sterile. He'd live. "Who did this?" I asked while injecting antibiotics into his arm. He didn't answer. They never do. Street code. Omerta. You don't snitch, not even to your Ripper, because Rippers talk and talk spreads, and suddenly your enemies know your weaknesses, your patterns, where you bleed from. 4,000 eddies. He paid without question, transferred funds, stood up, extended his mantis blades experimentally. The hydraulics hissed. Chrome glinted under the LED lights like knives designed by demons. He retracted them, nodded once, left without speaking. I watched him climb the stairs, wondered how long until he came back, how long until the next fight, the next bullet, the next catastrophic injury. The cycle never ends. They come to my clinic broken. I fix them, send them back into the streets. They break again, come back, over and over until one day they don't come back because they're dead. Patient number 2, they kept coming. The sun rose outside. Not that I could tell from 3 floors underground with no windows, but I knew from the patterns. Morning brought different patients. Corporate drones needing quick fixes before clocking in. Street vendors requiring pain suppressants so they could work through injuries. Sex workers needing cosmetic repairs after clients got rough. The desperate cycle of night city's lower economic tiers. A woman arrived at 8:47 a.m. with a malfunctioning pain editor. She'd been stabbed 5 times in the side and hadn't felt it. Just kept working her corner in Japantown until blood loss made her collapse. I removed the faulty implant. Cheap Chinese knockoff. Poorly installed by someone who barely qualified as a Ripper. Stitched the wounds. Gave her antibiotics she probably couldn't afford and painkillers she definitely needed. A kid came in at 10:15 a.m. with botched facial reconstruction. 14 years old, wanted to look like some brain dance star whose name I didn't recognize. Found a cheaper Ripper. Got butchered. His face was asymmetrical, muscles pulling in wrong directions, synthetic skin grafted poorly over bone structure that hadn't been properly prepared. I did what I could. Couldn't fix everything. The bone work was permanent. He cried when he looked in the mirror. Paid me anyway. left with a face he'd hate for the rest of his life. An old man stumbled through my door at 11:52 a.m. with a failing heart. More machine than muscle at this point. Pump mechanism seizing from lack of maintenance. He couldn't afford proper care. Couldn't afford the replacement parts. Could barely afford me. I jerry-rigged a temporary fix using components from my bioprinter. Told him it would last maybe 6 months. He knew what that meant. Thanked me anyway. Paid in installments he'd never finish because he'd be dead. One after another. The broken. The desperate. The people this city had chewed up and spat back out, still alive enough to suffer. I fixed them. Took their money. Sent them back into the streets to break again. By 2 p.m. I'd seen 17 patients. My hands were steady, but my mind was starting to fray at the edges. The adrenaline wearing off. Exhaustion seeping in like water through concrete. I needed sleep. Food. Something other than synthetic caffeine and nicotine and the taste of other people's blood. The door opened again at 2:34 p.m. This one was different. I knew immediately. The way he moved. Controlled. Predatory. Military bearing, poorly disguised by street clothes. He wore a leather jacket with Valentino colors stitched across the back, but something about him felt wrong. Too professional. Too calculated. Too aware of his surroundings. Elijah Cross? His voice was smooth. Educated. Corporate accent hidden under street inflection like expensive clothes under a cheap coat. Depends who's asking. Someone who needs your services. Discreet services. Specialized work. Every instinct I possessed screamed warning. Discreet meant illegal. Specialized meant dangerous. The combination meant something that could get me killed or worse, arrested and processed through the corpo justice system. But I needed the money. The bioprinter was dying. Supplies running critically low. The Tiger Claws had raised protection rates again. I was drowning in debt and desperation. I'm listening. He pulled out a data pad. Slid it across my work tray. I picked it up. The screen showed a video. Surgical procedure. Someone installing military-grade cyberware. Black market. Highly illegal. The kind of tech that got MaxTac deployed with shoot-on-site orders. I need this done, he said. Tonight. Midnight. Address will be provided. Payment is 25,000 eddies. 25,000. 4 months of normal work compressed into one night. Enough to replace the bioprinter completely. Restock supplies. Pay off debts. Buy breathing room. What's the catch? No catch. Just discretion. You don't talk about it. Don't record it. Don't remember it afterward. Simple job for simple pay. Nothing about this was simple. But I nodded anyway because what choice did I have? Midnight. Send me the address. He smiled. The expression didn't reach his eyes. Left without another word. The door closed behind him with a finality that felt like a cell door locking. I stared at the datapad. At the video showing chrome I'd only seen in military spec sheets. At the kind of job that either made your career or ended your life. There was no middle ground with work like this. My terminal beeped. Message from an anonymous sender. Just an address. Kabuki. North Side. Deep in Maelstrom territory. I closed the terminal. Looked around my clinic. My prison. Every tool earned through blood and chrome and nights like this one. Every stain a testament to failures and survival. This place had become my entire world. Small, safe, predictable in its horrors. The job tonight would change that. I knew it the way you know a storm is coming by the pressure in the air. Something fundamental shifting. Something breaking. I should have refused. Should have deleted the message. Locked the clinic. Disappeared for a few days until whoever sent it forgot about me. Found another desperate Ripper to do their dirty work. But I didn't. Because in Night City, you don't turn down 25,000 eddies. Not when you're drowning. Not when the alternative is joining the bodies that wash up in the harbor every morning. The afternoon passed in a mechanical haze. More patients. More blood. More chrome installed and removed and repaired. A Maelstrom ganger with a neural virus eating through his brain implants. A corporate suit with a black market Sandevistan overheating from prolonged use. A prostitute needing cosmetic repairs after a client got violent. A street kid with infected implant sites because he couldn't afford antibiotics. I worked through them all. hands moving through practiced motions while my mind spun through scenarios. What kind of job needed this much discretion? What kind of client paid $25,000 for a blacklisted street ripper when they could afford corporate clinics with proper facilities? Nothing good. That was certain. That was guaranteed. By 9 p.m. I'd closed the clinic, locked everything down, triple-checked the security systems, cameras, motion sensors, the remote alert system connected to my phone, checked my pistol. Lexington, small caliber, probably useless if things went wrong, but better than nothing. Grabbed my medical bag, packed the essentials, anesthetic, surgical tools, emergency supplies, enough to handle basic trauma work. I left through the back exit, an access tunnel that led to the sub-basement, then out through a maintenance shaft 2 blocks away in an alley behind a ramen shop. Standard escape route. I'd planned it my first week after a gang war nearly trapped me in the clinic during a firefight that lasted 6 hours. The streets of Watson were alive with their usual chaos. Neon bleeding into puddles of contaminated water. Holographic advertisements screaming promises nobody believed. Crowds of people moving with that peculiar night city urgency. Everyone going somewhere. Nobody arriving anywhere that matters. I called a cab to Kabuki. The automated voice cheerfully informed me about weather patterns and shopping opportunities while we drove through increasingly hostile territory. Maelstrom tags covered every surface. Buildings that looked like they'd collapse if you breathed on them wrong. Shadows that moved wrong. Eyes watching from dark corners. The cab dropped me at the address at 11:47 p.m. An abandoned factory. 4 stories of industrial decay. Windows shattered decades ago. Walls covered in gang graffiti layered so thick you couldn't see the original concrete. The perfect place for things people didn't want found. I checked my gun one more time. Took a breath that tasted like rust and ozone. Walked inside. The interior was massive. Empty. My footsteps echoed off metal and concrete in ways that made distances impossible to judge. Somewhere in the darkness, water dripped steadily. The smell hit me. Rust and chemicals and something organic rotting slowly in the heat. You came. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Synthesized. Artificial. Layered with digital distortion. A figure emerged from the darkness ahead. Tall. Chrome covering every visible inch of flesh. Face replaced entirely with a metal mask. Eyes glowing blue with an intensity that hurt to look at directly. Maelstrom. Definitely Maelstrom. The kind that had gone so far down the chrome rabbit hole they barely registered as human anymore. "You're the Ripper," he said. Statement, not question. His synthesized voice resonated in my chest. "That's what the sign says." "Good. Follow me." He turned and walked deeper into the factory. I followed because what choice did I have? My hand stayed near my gun. Not that it would help against someone that chromed. He could probably kill me before my neurons fired the signal to draw. We entered a large central room. He touched something on his arm. Industrial lights flickered on in sequence. Harsh white light flooding the space, revealing everything. And I saw them. 93 people. I counted later. 93 Maelstrom gang members. Chrome glinting under the lights like a sea of broken mirrors. Red optics glowing in the shadows. They filled the room in a loose circle, watching me, waiting. Silent, predatory. And in the center, on a makeshift surgical table welded together from metal sheeting and industrial equipment, lay someone I hadn't expected. A child. Maybe 12 years old. Girl. Unconscious. And her body was wrong. Grotesquely wrong. Chrome installed everywhere. Arms replaced with metal limbs sized for an adult. Legs replaced. Chest open to expose a cavity where ribs should be. Her spine was visible through torn flesh. Metal grafted directly to bone. Her skull had been opened. Brain exposed to air. Someone had tried to turn this child into a weapon, and they'd failed catastrophically. The chrome was rejecting. I could see it from 20 feet away. The tissue around each implant was necrotic. Black. Rotting. Her body was dying from the inside out, poisoned by the very augmentations that were supposed to enhance her. "Fix her," the chrome-masked Maelstrom said. I stared at the child. at the atrocity someone had committed. My stomach turned. Bile rose in my throat. Who did this? Scavengers. Found her in a chop shop 3 days ago. She's one of ours. Family. We want her back. She needs a hospital. A real facility with proper equipment. This is beyond street medicine. We need discretion. No hospitals. No records. No corpo involvement. That's why you're here. That's why we're paying you 25,000 eddies. I can't. We know you need it. We know about your clinic, your debts, your failing equipment, the Tiger Claw's raising rates. Do this job successfully, you can fix all of that. Refuse, and we'll find someone else. But you won't leave this factory. Can't have you talking about what you've seen. There it was. The real choice. Do the impossible job or die trying to refuse. Not much of a choice at all. I approached the table, examined the child more closely. The damage was extensive, catastrophic. Whoever had done this wasn't a Ripper. They were a butcher with delusions of medical competence. The chrome had been installed wrong. Neural connections crossed, power systems overloading organic tissue. Her body was rejecting everything simultaneously. I need supplies. Equipment I don't have with me. Make a list. I did. Pulled out my data pad. Typed quickly. 23 items. Specialized tools. Rare medications. Components I'd only read about in medical journals. Handed the list to the masked man. He glanced at it. Nodded. Disappeared into the shadows. I stood there surrounded by 93 silent Maelstrom members. Waiting. My heart hammered in my chest. This was insane. This was suicide. This was exactly the kind of job that got Rippers killed. He returned 8 minutes later with everything. Every single item on my list. Perfect condition. Military grade. No questions about cost or sourcing. These weren't just gangers. This was organized. Well-funded. Connected at levels I didn't want to think about. I set up my workspace around the table. Unpacked my tools with hands that wanted to shake. The Maelstrom members watched in absolute silence. 93 pairs of eyes tracking every movement. I began the most important surgery of my life. First step, stabilize her before she died on the table. I injected immunosuppressants directly into her carotid artery. The needle slid through necrotic tissue. Antibiotics followed. Anti-inflammatory agents. Synthetic adrenaline. I watched the portable monitor one of the Maelstrom members had provided. Heart rate erratic, spiking between 40 and 160. Blood pressure critically low at 60/40. Oxygen saturation dropping steadily. 78%. 76. She was dying in real time while 93 chrome-faced gangers watched me try to prevent it. Second step. Assess the catastrophic damage systematically. I started with her arms because they were the most obviously wrong. The chrome limbs were adult-sized, grotesquely oversized for her small frame. Each one probably weighed 15 pounds. Her shoulders were dislocated from the weight, joints torn, ligaments shredded. Whoever installed them had simply hacked off her organic arms at the shoulder joint and bolted on the replacements with no consideration for her developing skeletal structure. The neural connections were a nightmare. Crossed wires, backwards installations. Her motor cortex was trying to send signals to limbs that didn't match her neural map. The feedback loop was probably driving her insane before she lost consciousness. I could see the implant sites were infected. Green pus leaking from the connection points. The smell hit me. Rot and synthetic coolant mixing into something that made my stomach turn. I disconnected the neural links one by one. Each connection sparked blue as I severed it. Her body jerked with each disconnection. The Maelstrom members shifted closer. I could feel their eyes on my hands. One mistake, and I wouldn't leave this factory alive. I cut through the synthetic muscle tissue, connecting chrome to bone. The pneumatic systems hissed as they depressurized. Hydraulic fluid sprayed across my hands, mixing with blood. I removed the first limb. 23 pounds. I'd been wrong about 15. The weight was obscene. I set it aside and moved to the second arm. The flesh beneath was destroyed. Necrotic tissue spreading like a stain from the connection points. Black and green. Dead meat that crumbled when I touched it. I cut away the destroyed tissue, removing it in chunks. Her shoulder was exposed bone. I could see the joint, the ball and socket grinding together without cartilage. "I need the bioprinter from my clinic," I said without looking up. "It's the only way to grow replacement tissue fast enough to save her." The masked man made a gesture. 2 Maelstrom members disappeared into the shadows. I kept working, removed the second arm, started cutting away necrotic tissue from her other shoulder. The monitor beeped warnings. Her blood pressure was dropping. 55/38. The 2 gangers returned 37 minutes later. They carried my bioprinter between them. The entire machine. They'd gone to my clinic, 3 floors underground in Watson, disassembled it, and brought it here. The speed terrified me more than anything else that had happened tonight. They knew where I worked, where I lived, everything about me. I set up the printer on a makeshift table someone provided, powered it on. The startup sequence took 3 minutes. I configured it for organic tissue growth. Basic human arms, child-sized, 12 years old, female, no enhancements, no chrome, just functional human limbs that might let her live something resembling a normal life. The machine started its print cycle. The sound filled the factory, a mechanical grinding interspersed with wet organic sounds as it layered tissue cell by cell. The process would take 90 minutes per limb. I didn't have 90 minutes. Her vitals were failing. While the printer worked, I moved to her legs. The same catastrophic installation. The same necrotic spread. The same criminal incompetence. I removed the chrome legs. Each one weighed 30 pounds. Her hip joints were shattered from the weight. Bone fragments ground together as I worked. I started another print cycle for legs. The bioprinter's warning lights flickered red. It was operating beyond safe parameters. The print heads were overheating. The tissue growth accelerator was redlining. I pushed it harder. It would either complete the job or fail catastrophically. No middle ground. 3 hours into surgery. Her vital signs were deteriorating rapidly. Heart rate climbing to dangerous levels. 180, 190. Her body was going into shock from the massive trauma. I administered more drugs. Synthetic adrenaline to keep her blood pressure up. Beta blockers to prevent her heart from exploding. Painkillers even though she was unconscious because her nervous system was screaming. I watched the monitors. Watched the numbers fluctuate wildly. This was beyond my skill level. Beyond my equipment. Beyond anything I should have attempted. But I was here. And she was dying. And 93 Maelstrom members were watching me decide whether she lived or died. 4 hours. The first arm finished printing. I lifted it from the printer bed. It was warm, soft, blood vessels visible beneath translucent skin. Almost real, almost human. I carried it to the surgical table and began the attachment process. I connected it to her shoulder joint first, bone to bone. Used the bone welder to fuse them together. The joint glowed white hot for 3 seconds, then cooled, fused, permanent. I started grafting nerves. This was microsurgery. Each nerve fiber had to be aligned precisely or she'd lose function. I worked by millimeters, connected the radial nerve, the median nerve, the ulnar nerve. Each connection took 15 minutes of precise work. My hands cramped, my vision blurred from exhaustion. I ignored everything except the nerves under my magnification lens. 5 hours. First arm attached and functional. I tested the neural connections by sending electrical signals through the pathways. Her fingers twitched. Index finger, middle finger, thumb. Good signs. The connections were taking. I moved to the second arm. The bioprinter had just finished. I repeated the process. Bone fusion, nerve grafting, blood vessel connection. My hands moved automatically now. Muscle memory taking over while my conscious mind floated somewhere distant. 6 hours. Both arms attached. I tested them again. More finger twitches. Her right hand formed a fist. Unconscious reflex. Her brain was communicating with the new limbs. The neural pathways were forming. I moved to her legs. Both limbs were ready. I started with her right leg. Connected it to her hip joint. The bone was shattered. I had to reconstruct the joint socket first, using synthetic bone from the printer. Welded it in place. Then attached the leg. 7 hours. Right leg attached. I tested it. Her knee flexed, ankle rotated. The connections were holding. 8 hours. Left leg complete. She had 4 human limbs now. Organic. Flesh and bone. No chrome. No enhancements. Just the body of a 12-year-old girl who might survive this nightmare. But I wasn't finished. The worst part remained. Her chest cavity. Someone had removed her ribs. Partially. Cut them away to create space for a reinforced skeletal frame. Military hardware. Titanium alloy designed to protect soldiers from small arms fire. In a child's body, it was crushing her organs. I could see the metal framework pressing into her heart. Each beat pushed the organ against the unyielding titanium. Her lungs were compressed. They couldn't fully inflate. She was suffocating slowly while her heart destroyed itself against metal. I started removing the skeletal frame. Each section was bolted directly to her spine. 8 bolts per section. 32 bolts total. I removed them one at a time with a powered driver. Each bolt was threaded through vertebrae. Removing them damaged her spine. She started bleeding internally. Massive hemorrhaging. Blood pressure crashed. 40/20. I cauterized blood vessels as fast as I could find them. The bone welder doubled as a cauterizing tool. I burned through tissue, sealing vessels, filling the factory with the smell of burning flesh. The monitor started screaming. Continuous alarm, her heart was failing. "She's coding," I shouted. I started CPR immediately, chest compressions on a ribcage that barely existed. Her sternum flexed wrong under my hands. I could feel the bones grinding, could feel her heart beneath my palms. I compressed, released, compressed, released. 30 compressions. I gave her rescue breaths. Her lungs barely inflated. I went back to compressions. Someone handed me a defibrillator. Automated external model. I placed the pads on her chest. Charged it. Clear. The shock made her body arch off the table. I checked the monitor. No pulse. I went back to compressions. Gave her adrenaline directly into her heart. Injected it through her chest wall. Compressed again. Another shock. Clear. Her body convulsed. I checked the monitor. Weak pulse. 40 beats per minute. Not good, but alive. I went back to removing the skeletal frame. 9 hours. Frame removed. Her chest cavity was empty. Exposed, I could see everything inside her. Her heart beating weakly. Her lungs trying to inflate. The sight was obscene. Wrong, but necessary. I started printing ribcage sections. The bioprinter was failing. The warning lights were all red now. The print heads were grinding. The tissue matrix was destabilizing, but it kept working. Kept printing. 10 hours. First rib sections complete. I installed them one at a time. Connected them to her spine. To her sternum. I was building her a new rib cage from synthetic bone and hope. It wasn't perfect. The angles were wrong. The connections rough. But it would protect her organs. 11 hours. Rib cage complete. I sealed her chest cavity layer by layer. Muscle tissue first. I grafted synthetic muscle over her ribs, then fat tissue, then skin. The synth skin applicator printed replacement skin that I stretched over the wound and sealed with medical adhesive. 12 hours. Her chest was closed, protected. Her vital signs were stabilizing slightly. Heart rate 60. Blood pressure 70/45. Still critical but improving. I moved to her skull. The final horror. Someone had opened her cranium to access her brain directly. Installed neural processors into her cortex. Military-grade combat software. Real-time tactical analysis. Threat assessment algorithms. Target acquisition systems. In an adult soldier, this chrome might work. In a child's developing brain, it was causing catastrophic damage. I could see the processors. 5 of them. Each one wired directly into her gray matter. They pulsed with blue light. Active. Running. Even now they were processing data, trying to turn a 12-year-old girl into a weapon. I had to remove them without destroying her personality, her memories, everything that made her human. Each processor had between 30 and 50 neural connections. I had to sever them one at a time. If I pulled wrong, I could damage her motor cortex, her speech centers, her ability to form memories. I started with the first processor. located in her frontal lobe. I disconnected the neural connections microscopically, one fiber at a time. Each disconnection took 3 minutes. 90 connections on this processor alone. 13 hours. First processor removed. Her brain was bleeding from the disconnection points. I couldn't stop all of it. Just did my best to minimize the damage. Applied clotting agents, synthetic blood factors. Watched the bleeding slow. 14 hours. Second processor out. More bleeding. I was destroying parts of her brain. Small parts, but damage was accumulating. She might wake up different. Changed. I had no choice. 15 hours. Third processor removed from her temporal lobe. This one controlled her sensory processing. I could see the connections had fused with her organic neural tissue. I had to cut through her own brain matter to remove it. The gray matter came away in threads. 16 hours. Fourth processor out. I was shaking now. Exhaustion making my hands unsteady. Someone brought me water. I drank without stopping work. The Maelstrom members were silent, watching, waiting. 17 hours. Final processor removed from her occipital lobe. Visual processing center. I damaged it. I knew I had. She might wake up blind, or with impaired vision, or with visual hallucinations. I'd done the best I could with impossible circumstances. I sealed her skull, used synthetic bone to replace the sections that had been cut away, covered it with synth skin. Her head looked wrong, slightly misshapen. The bone hadn't set perfectly, but it was closed, sterile, protected. 18 hours. I stepped back, looked at what I'd created. The girl on the table looked almost human, almost normal, but she was alive. Her vital signs were stabilizing. Heart rate 70, blood pressure 85/55, oxygen saturation 91%. I'd done it, somehow. Against every medical principle, against all probability. I'd saved her. Will she survive? The masked Maelstrom leader asked. His voice was flat, synthesized, impossible to read emotion. I don't know, I said. My voice was hoarse from 18 hours of not speaking. If infection doesn't set in, if her body accepts the new tissue, if the immunosuppressants hold, if brain damage isn't too severe, if 1,000 things don't go wrong, maybe. That's the best answer I can give you. What's her prognosis? Long-term? She'll need follow-up care, constant monitoring, more surgeries probably. The bone work isn't perfect. The neural connections need time to fully integrate. She might have cognitive impairments from the brain surgery, vision problems, motor control issues. She might wake up as a completely different person, or she might be fine. I don't know. This was beyond anything I should have attempted. But she'll live. Probably. For now. Yes. Good enough. He handed me a cred stick. I checked it. 25,000 eddies. Exactly as promised. If she dies in the next week, we'll know where to find you, he said. Not a threat. Just a statement of fact. They knew everything about me now. She'll need medications, I said. Antibiotics, immunosuppressants, pain management. I can provide a list. Already handled. We have access to pharmaceutical supplies. Military grade. Better than what you could source. Of course they did. These weren't just street gangers. This was an organization. Well-funded, well-connected, operating at levels I didn't want to think about. I packed my tools with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. My clothes were soaked through with blood and sweat and hydraulic fluid. I smelled like a slaughterhouse. The Maelstrom members parted silently to let me pass. 93 pairs of chrome eyes watching me leave. I walked out of the factory into early morning light. The sun was rising over Kabuki. Orange light filtered through brown smog. The city was waking up. Legitimate people heading to legitimate jobs. The day shift beginning. Night's horrors retreating into shadows until darkness fell again. I caught a cab back to Watson. The automated voice cheerfully discussed weather patterns while I sat in the back seat trying not to vomit. My hands were still covered in blood, dried now, cracking. The driver didn't comment. In Night City, blood-soaked passengers barely register as unusual. I reached my apartment. A single room with a bed that smelled like mildew and a shower that only worked intermittently. I stripped off my clothes, left them in a pile. They'd go in the incinerator. Some stains don't come out. I stood under cold water for 40 minutes, watched blood spiral down the drain, pink water becoming clear, the physical evidence washing away, the memories staying sharp. I didn't sleep, couldn't, just lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, seeing that child's mutilated body, seeing what we do to each other in this city, what we become in the name of enhancement, power, survival. 3 days passed before I reopened the clinic. I needed the time, needed to process what I'd done, what I'd participated in. I'd saved a child's life. That should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like complicity. Patients came when I reopened. The usual parade of broken people needing chrome maintenance. A Valentino with a malfunctioning Sandevistan. A Joy Toy needing cosmetic repairs. A Corpo drone with an infected implant site. I fixed them all mechanically, hands moving through practiced motions while my mind was elsewhere. On the 4th day, I received a message. Anonymous sender. Text only. She woke up, talking, asking for food. Thank you. I deleted it immediately, but the words stayed with me. She woke up. I'd saved her, given her another chance at life in a city designed to crush anyone vulnerable. I should have felt proud, accomplished. Instead, I felt hollow, because I knew the truth. I'd saved her from the scavengers, put her back together, but I'd sent her right back to the maelstrom, back to a gang that would use her, shape her, turn her into whatever they needed. The cycle never ends. Save someone so they can be destroyed differently. 2 weeks passed. My clinic returned to normal operations, the routine of blood and chrome. Then another message arrived. Different anonymous sender. Your debt to the Tiger Claws has been paid. Your protection has been upgraded, courtesy of interested parties. Keep your mouth shut, and Night City can be very generous. I stared at the message, the implications settling over me like concrete. I was owned now. Property. The maelstrom had bought me with gratitude and threats. I'd become an asset, a resource to be used. I'd sworn I'd never be a Corpo asset, never be owned. But here I was, just different colors, different masters, same cage. Word spread fast in Night City's underground. The Ripper who saved the Maelstrom kid, the one who could fix anything. Patients started coming from across the city. Not just Watson, from Pacifica, from Haywood, from Santo Domingo. They came with impossible injuries. A man arrived with his entire nervous system shutting down. Advanced cyberpsychosis. Stage 4. He was twitching uncontrollably, hallucinating, seeing demons in the shadows. Attack algorithms running in his combat software, making him see threats everywhere. I sedated him heavily, removed 70% of his chrome, replaced it with basic organic tissue. When he woke up, he was diminished, weaker, slower, but human again. Mostly. The look in his eyes, gratitude mixed with loss. He'd traded power for sanity. In Night City, that's a luxury purchase. A woman came in with a literal bomb in her chest. Not metaphorical, an actual explosive device someone had installed while she was unconscious. Payment enforcement for a debt she couldn't cover. I had 42 minutes to remove it before the timer reached 0. I worked faster than I'd ever worked. Cut through her sternum, accessed her chest cavity. The device was wired to her heart, connected to her pulse. If her heart stopped, it detonated. If I cut the wrong wire, it detonated. If the timer reached 0, it detonated. I traced each wire, identified the trigger mechanism, found the disarm sequence, cut 3 specific wires in precise order. The timer stopped at 4 minutes 17 seconds. I removed the device, sealed her chest. She cried, paid me double, disappeared into the city. A Corpo suit stumbled in one night with a bullet lodged in his brain. 9mm round. Someone had tried to assassinate him during a board meeting. Failed. Left him with the bullet in his frontal lobe. He was still walking, still talking. The round had missed critical areas by millimeters. I couldn't remove it. Too dangerous. The bullet had settled into position, scar tissue forming around it. Removing it would cause more damage than leaving it. So I built a cage around it. Synthetic tissue. Isolated it from surrounding brain matter. He'd live with it forever. A permanent souvenir from the day someone tried to kill him. Will it affect me? He asked. Probably. Personality changes. Mood instability. You might become more aggressive, more impulsive. The frontal lobe regulates behavior. You've got a piece of metal pressing on it. So I'll be different? Yes, but you'll be alive. He paid. Left. I heard later he killed the person who shot him, then killed 3 members of his own board. Blamed it on the bullet. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. In Night City, everyone's looking for excuses. They kept coming. The broken, the desperate, the people this city had chewed up and spat back out. And I kept fixing them. Because what else could I do? 6 months after saving the Maelstrom girl, she came back. I was cleaning equipment when she walked down the stairs. I recognized her immediately despite the changes. She'd grown, filled out. The printed tissue had integrated perfectly. Her arms looked natural. Her legs worked smoothly. No limp, no visible signs of the catastrophic damage she'd survived. I wanted to thank you, she said. Her voice was different than I'd imagined. Stronger, more confident. A child's voice becoming something else. You don't need to thank me. I was paid. I know, but you didn't have to save me. You could have let me die. They said you worked for 18 hours, that you rebuilt me piece by piece. I did my job. No, you did more than that. You gave me another chance, another life. I wanted you to know it mattered. She left before I could respond. I watched her climb the stairs and disappear, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Something dangerous. Hope. Maybe she'd be okay. Maybe she'd escape the gangs. Maybe she'd find something resembling a normal life. Maybe my work had actually mattered. The hope lasted 2 days. Then I heard the news. Maelstrom had sent her on a job. A raid against the Tiger Claws in Japantown. She was small, fast, perfect for infiltration. They'd sent her into a building to plant explosives. The Claws were waiting. Ambush. The building collapsed during the firefight. Explosives detonated prematurely. 17 dead, including her. They'd used her, the life I'd saved, used it up like ammunition and discarded the remains. I closed the clinic for a week, sat in my apartment, drank synthetic whiskey until I couldn't feel anything, until I stopped seeing her face, stopped hearing her voice thanking me. For what? I'd saved her so she could die worse, so the Maelstrom could use her as a tool, so she could experience 6 more months of life before being thrown away. On the 8th day, I reopened. Because what else could I do? Quit? Run? There's nowhere to run in Night City. The city is a cage. We're all trapped inside pretending we have choices when really we're following scripts written by people who see us as resources to exploit. The patients came. I fixed them. The cycle continued. A year passed, then 2, then 3. My clinic became an institution, a legend in certain circles. The place you went when nowhere else would take you, when you were too broken, too illegal, too dangerous, too poor. I hired an assistant eventually, a kid named Marco, 19 years old, wanted to be a doctor, had basic medical training but no credentials, no corporate backing, just his skill and desperation. I taught him what I could, watched him learn, watched the city start breaking him down the same way it broke me. Why do you do this? He asked me one night after a particularly brutal surgery. We'd saved a woman who'd been caught in gang crossfire. 12 bullet wounds. She'd survived, but barely. Do what? This. All of it. You could work for a corpo clinic. Legitimate facility. You've got the skills. Why stay here in this basement, fixing people who'll probably die anyway? I didn't have a good answer. Still don't. Because someone has to, I said finally. Because in a city that treats people like disposable resources, someone needs to say that lives matter, that suffering matters, that the broken deserve to be fixed, even if they'll just break again. That's not a real answer. It's the only one I have. 3 years after saving the Maelstrom girl, a corpo executive came to my clinic. Real corpo. Top tier. Arasaka middle management. He had cancer. Organic. His augmentations couldn't fight it. He'd been to every legitimate facility in Night City. They'd all said the same thing. Terminal. 6 months if he was lucky. He wanted me to try anyway. Offered me 300,000 eddies. I told him no. You don't understand, he said. His voice was desperate, scared. Death makes everyone equal eventually. I can pay, whatever you want. Name your price. I have resources, access. I can get you anything. It's not about money. It's about what I can't fix. Your cancer is everywhere. Bones, marrow, organs. It's metastasized beyond any treatment I can provide. There's nothing I can do. There has to be something. Experimental treatment, black market drugs, illegal procedures, anything. There's dying with dignity. That's what I can offer you. Pain management, comfort care, a peaceful end instead of a painful one. But I can't save you. He left angry, cursing me, threatening lawsuits, empty threats from a dead man. He came back 3 days later, calmer. We talked about his options. I gave him medications for pain, for anxiety, for sleep, helped him prepare for the inevitable. He died 2 months later in my clinic, not in a corporate facility surrounded by machines and strangers in white coats, but in my basement, in the surgical chair, with Marco and me beside him. It was the first time I'd consciously let someone die without fighting it. The first time I'd accepted that some things can't be fixed. It felt like failure and relief simultaneously. More patients came after that. More stories. More small tragedies. The man who wanted chrome removed because he was losing himself to the machine. The woman who needed chrome installed to survive her dangerous job. The endless parade of people trying to navigate the impossible space between human and machine. I fixed them all, or tried to. Some I saved. Some I couldn't. Some I made worse despite my best efforts. But I tried every single time, because that's what Night City demands. You keep trying, keep fighting, even when you know you'll probably lose, even when you know the system is designed to grind you down, even when you know that everyone you save will just die another way eventually. You keep trying, because the alternative is giving up, becoming another body in the harbor, another statistic, another person the city ground into paste. My terminal beeps. New message. Anonymous sender. Emergency, north side, patient critical. Can you come? I stare at the screen. Every instinct screams no. I'm exhausted, destroyed. I've given this city everything it can take, and it keeps demanding more. But I respond anyway. Send address. Coming now. Because that's what I do. That's what this miserable life demands. I grab my bag, check my tools, head for the stairs. Above me, Night City waits. Hungry. Always hungry. Ready to break someone else. Ready for me to try fixing them. The cycle never ends. And neither do I. Not yet.